This is the Easton Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, June 29th, 2021 meeting at 6:30. We are conducting this via Zoom. Just a couple of preliminary statements here. As with any public meeting, any participation that is inappropriate will be terminated and the person will be removed from the meeting. If during the hearing anybody wishes to speak, you can use the raise hand function on Zoom to make a request, and we will call on you as appropriate. If you are participating via phone, you can do that using *9 on the phone. Just as a general statement before we get going, well, let's open the first hearing. It's public hearing, comprehensive permit 21-10 for Blackledge LLC, property located at 87 and 91 Union Street. Members of the board sitting on this particular hearing, Ed Watson, John Curran, Steve Merlin, Tim McCall, and myself. I see that I'm going to bring the applicant and his attorney into the panel, and while I am doing that, I just want to state, because I know there's some members of the public that are here. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to open and introduce this matter. Allow the applicant to sort of give us an overview, and then we're going to continue the hearing till probably a date in August, so that the town can get peer reviewed on the engineering and the traffic studies. I think for purposes of tonight's meeting, it's probably premature to get and take comments and questions from either the board or the public at this time. So otherwise we'll be rehashing the same comments and questions next time. And I think everybody will be in a better position to answer those questions once the applicant has finalized his plans and we've gotten everything peer reviewed on behalf of the town. Given that for the time being, Mr. Lincoln, Mr. Marioni, if either of you would like to start the process and open the narrative and tell us where you are and what you're looking to do here, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think Tim needs to read the public hearing notice.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Tim, why don't you do that and any comments that you have?
Will do. Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 29th at 6:30 p.m. where the public will have an opportunity to testify on the following petition. Comprehensive permit, Blackledge LLC for property located at 87, 87R, 89R, and 91 Union Street, Easton, Mass, and property known as 0 Pleasant Street in Brockton, parcels 5U-44, 5U-45, 5U-45A, 5U-45B, the assessors maps of the town of Easton, and parcel 003-49 on the assessors maps of the city of Brockton, for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGL Chapter 40B, Section 20-23 as follows. Applicant seeks to construct a rental housing community consisting of 108 apartments on a parcel of 7.1 acres in the area. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. I'm going to read the comments. Fire department, no additional comments or concerns for the fire department. Environmental planner. The Conservation Commission is reviewing the wetland boundaries at its meeting on June 23rd. Any work within the 100-foot wetland will require a Conservation Commission review. The Conservation Commission is reviewing the wetland boundaries at its meeting. Wait a second, that's the same thing. The plans as submitted do not show relocation of the historically significant circuit. I'm sorry, let me just start again. That's the Historical Commission. Their comment, the plans are as submitted do not show relocation of the historically significant circuit 1795 Monk House to as near as possible to its current site following regrading of the project's entrance area, retention and appropriate rehabilitation of the historic house as near to its historic location as possible was noted as a historical commission priority in the design review team meeting. Plans and specifications for the historic house rehab are needed. Waiver request number 4 from the front yard setback required for the proposed community building appears to be intended to allow retention, rehabilitation, relocation of the historic house, which should be more fully articulated in the waiver request. Affordable housing. Their comment was the proposal submitted, proposed building tabulations only has 11.11%, 12 units of the 108 as 3 bedrooms, which is one more than the state's minimally required 10%, 11 units. In order to support more working families in Easton, the Affordable Housing Trust requests more 3-bedroom units, both affordable and market rate. Waiver request number 11 from the affordable housing requirements of zoning bylaw 235-45 may not be necessary as the bylaw and section only appear to apply to residential compounds or adult retirement developments. And that's all the comments.
Mike, you're muted.
Yep, I am. Okay, thank you. Now I think we can move forward with the applicant and Attorney Marioni or Mr. Lincoln, if you'd like to make an initial opening statement.
Okay, Walter,
Thank
you want-
you, thank you, board, Mr. Chairman, board members and town council. Just by way of introduction, my name is Walter Marioni. I am with the law firm of Marioni, Shaughnessy and Udy based in Quincy. And we are representing the applicant, Blackledge LLC, and Mr. Lincoln, who is the principal of Blackledge on this project. I think tonight, for the sake of what we need to accomplish here, you guys don't need to hear much from me. Mr. Lincoln is prepared just to give a brief overview of the project. And then I think we'll go back to the chair and perhaps council to procedurally move the process forward. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Rick Lincoln, who is the principal of Blackledge, and let him take it from here.
Thanks, Walter, and thanks everyone for spending your time listening to this presentation. Before I get going, how do I share? Who's going to share the screen on some of these graphics? Do I do that, or how?
If you can, that would be wonderful. If you
Okay.
can't, I can certainly give it a shot here.
Okay. Let me just
You
run
want
through.
me
I
to
won't.
try?
Well, let me just start with a little bit of history, and I'll keep this stuff real brief, and then I think the picture is going to be real helpful, or the
Yep.
few graphics. So, if you don't mind.
No problem. Go ahead.
Back to the beginning on this thing a little bit. I got interested in 2019 when Mark Donahue, the real estate broker, brought this to me, and the first thing I did, along with Walter, is I wanted to get the town's pulse on, the vision was to reuse and revitalize Benson's property. I thought it was a great location, proximity to highways and, on the Brockton line. So I thought it'd be a great, originally assisted living that didn't work out. And we then started chatting with everybody about apartments. There were probably 9 months, 10 months, Walter probably knows better than I do, maybe longer, of discussions between myself, the sellers, the Benson family, and then town members. And before we even submitted a mass housing, there were several iterations of the site plan, which I'll pull up here in a minute. Everything from exterior elevations, the building orientations, number of parking spaces, conversations with the fire department, on all the fire access. So we which is atypical, I think, for me. I think we went pretty far down the path with getting the pulse of all the departments. After that, we went to the select board and they voted to support the project. Almost unanimously. There was one that didn't. And then I submitted to Mass Housing and we've since received our site eligibility letter. So here we are. We were kind of hoping it was a live meeting, but you know, we've all done Zooms an awful lot for the past 2 years. So here we are. The parcel is about 7 acres of mostly upland. And there is a little piece in Brockton, which we're using a little bit of for a detention pond and a little bit of parking. Most all of the development is in Easton, certainly all of the structures. And we have not, we're doing a pre-treatment system out there. And because that takes some time with both perk tests and so forth, we have not submitted a full grading plan with stormwater. And that's the reason. Once we fix the height of that leaching field, we hope by the next meeting, that's the goal. We'll be able to share a lot more detail and hopefully the town's review engineer can sink their teeth into it and we can go back and forth to make sure that that meets all of the stormwater regs and town regs and so forth. There's a little bit of wetlands as was noted earlier, but there's just a tiny little finger on the eastern side. That line has now been locked in. There's a little intermittent stream on the other side of the power lines in Brockton. And we've filed to the ANRAD, it's called, to fix that line. And I think they're meeting in like the 3rd week of July. We don't expect a problem there, but there is some 100-foot buffer zone impact from a detention pond over there. We've proposed 2 3-story wood frame buildings. You know, I've done several of these developments in the past. 3 stories seems to be the magic height, you know, so we don't get too high. We get the density we want. I ended up changing architects from the original Mass Housing submission for a variety of reasons, but the one I selected, BKA out of Brockton, and I think they have a Boston office. I think you've done a great job. So that's probably the 3rd iteration on the elevations, which I'll bring up here in a minute. Actually, some of the elevation changes were a result of some town comments, hoping that we could amp up the design a little bit, you know, break up the length of the building and just, you know, in essence, make it look a little nicer and spend a little bit more money on the elevation, which, you know, we think we've done. I think everybody likes it at this point, but, you know, open to comments. There are a mix of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. It's about 50%, maybe 45%, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And then, as mentioned earlier, it's 10% 3 bedrooms, which is required by Mass Housing these days. I heard the historic house comments. The reason we haven't fixed that location is because of the pretreatment system. You know, the leaching field is up front. All those perk tests have been completed, approved by DEP. So now we know where to put the house. It's essentially staying almost the same distance off the road, a little bit further into the site, but pushed up towards the Brockton line a little bit, maybe 80 feet off the line. And where the hope is to turn that into the leasing office. The main box of the house is the historic section. The wings on the side were added in the 60s. So the plan is to take those wings off, move the building, and then with the architect, you know, really gut the thing and probably put an addition on that obviously we'll be working with the Historic Commission on. So, but you know, I think we can do a really nice job with that, and that's the intent. There's 133 parking spaces. That's a 1.24 parking ratio. We had a little bit more in the beginning. I think the town, some of the comments were directed more towards more green space. We're still working with Traverse Landscape Architects to, come up with, once we fix the leaching field design, we can, maybe a dog park and, some tables and bike racks. We're doing a lot of electric vehicle charging stations on this one, which we've done on the last few projects, which the renters, well, we think that's the future. So it's easy to do it, while we're digging. It's going to require an upgrade of the town water line, which is 8-inch up to Clara Howard. But then it drops thereafter. So we've chatted with the water department and, engineering plans to follow, but, the plan is to upgrade to 8-inch all the way to our site, loop it through our site. And that, I think, makes everybody happy, and there's plenty of water pressure, and that's the plan there. I was going to list all the consultants, but you probably don't care. We've got quite a few consultants on this, from geotechnical engineers to landscape architects, structural engineers, MEP folks, fire sprinkler design, most of which I've worked with before. There's a few new folks in there, but everybody's been engaged and is under contract. If we get a chance to get moving. So I'm gonna leave it at that. See if I can share a drawing here. So Michael, you how do I?
I've got it ready to go, Rick, if you want me to give it a shot.
Yeah. So you want me to just bring up one of the plans?
Sure, you gonna do it?
Well, you want to try it?
All right. How's that?
That's a good one.
Which one do you want? This one?
That one's fine to start with. Yep. So the one big change from this, and honestly, I think it's an improvement. Of course, I'm the applicant, so I'm always going to say that, right? But building 2 on the Brockton line there, and this is because of the where we were successful with the perk test with DEP. Building 2 is going to move straight to the bottom of the site by about 200 feet. So we're actually moving away from Union Street and creating a lot more green space up front. So I like that. The original plan was to kind of put the parking in the back, but some of the parking will now be on the front side of the building, some in the back, and a lot more green space up front. You can see in this plan, we've already moved the historic building. I don't think it's going to be quite that close to the Brockton line. It's going to scoot over maybe 50 feet, but that's reasonably close. And we've designed the parking around that radius there. So being the leasing office and, maybe there's something else in there, I'm not sure yet. There's some nice guest parking, along the front of that building, and it keeps that kind of traffic out of the circulation around the buildings. We've worked hard at, the one abutter who I've had several discussions with, super nice guy, to the west over there. We've tried our damnedest to keep all of the vegetation along the property line there. We used to have a stormwater basin way down on the bottom left of building 1, but we've eliminated all that. We're sending it all underground so we could spend the time and money to vegetate. We're doing a fence for Greg next door, and we think that's going to work out. He's happy, although we'd like to do a little more planting on our side of the fence. You can see on the Brockton parcel there, it's hard to see. There's a little bit of an outline where you can see the detention pond. And then right there. And then on the right side of those power lines, that's where that little intermittent stream is in Brockton. So that pond is within 100 feet of the bordering vegetated wetlands over there. So for a project like this to really have one abutter in Easton, and really no wetlands issues, it's unusual for my projects. So we've been happy with the way that turns out. We think it'll look, nice from the road. Obviously, we paid attention to kind of keeping the buildings reasonably perpendicular to Union Street, to kind of decrease the massing, as seen from the street. I do have a graphic. I don't know if I'll be able to share it, but we've already had a full traffic study. It's not in your stuff, Michael.
Mhm.
And you can see the little blue car up at our entrance exit right there. Yeah, if that car was pulled forward, like by that tree there's a line that runs up to almost where it says Union Street, up on the Brockton line. So when we move the historic house, that grading gets taken down a little bit up by the road. Maybe I think it's like 20 feet in by the blue car, and then it goes down to 0. And it solves all of the site problems, because the existing, I don't know how they went that long with a precast concrete company out there and didn't have an accident out there, because it's that old house blocks the view from when people are coming from Brockton direction. It's hard to see them. But that all gets fixed, with the grading plan and the landscape architectural plan. There'll be some short bushes and stuff there, but nothing that's going to affect the sight line. So I think that's probably all I have for now. Without getting too much into the weeds, I can, you know what, Michael, if you don't mind, number 3 there. I didn't want to get into the grading a whole lot, because again, but it gives people a sense for, if you're familiar with the site, it drops down after that historic house. So the grading for these buildings will be more like the house, maybe down 2 or 3 feet. And then the rest of that will get filled around those buildings. So it'll be a level site with a slight grade decrease from Union Street all the way into the site. So if you don't mind, maybe hitting 4. This is where I think BKA has done a great job. They started playing with some of the gables and colors, and we've decided to that's stone, on the right, the front left of the right building there, right. So we thought we'd do stone. I mean, it's kind of Easton antique look. So they all have, they look like they're enclosed decks. That's just an anomaly from the rendering software. But all those are open decks, even though they look like they're all framed in with glass. The renderer got a little crazy, and he's drawn in some of the EV charging stations. They'll be out there, but not quite there. So, but it's a great rendering, I think, pretty detailed, and it's I think going to be pretty close to accurate. Once we get through the finished plans with the architect. Maybe number 2, Michael, if you don't mind, I'll just give everybody a quick look at the kind of the existing conditions aerial. It gives you a sense for, what's out there now. Again, that top building is going to get pushed way back. I don't know if some of that precast stuff is still out there up on the other property, but all that stuff's getting cleaned up. All the buildings are getting demoed with the exception of the historic house. And you can see the abutters house down there, Greg, and a lot of the mature buffer that we're not going to touch. So I think that's it.
All
right? So given the relocation of the building and our need to get, the plans peer reviewed and so forth, do you have a time frame on when you'll have those revised plans? And
The $1 million question.
yeah,
I'd like to say July, but it's gonna be August.
okay. Okay. Um, Walter, what are you thinking as far as timing on a next meeting then, under the circumstances?
What I'd like to suggest is that we run out two tracks here in terms of peer review. So we ship the plans out to the engineer to start working on that proposal. And at the same time, we ship out the traffic study and the information to the peer review consultant for traffic, presuming that you want those two peer reviews to be completed. I would think you would.
Yeah.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but it seems like the magnitude of this project would suggest that that be done, and get those proposals back, have them shipped over to us. Presumably we're going to be fine with them, get them funded. And then at that time, traffic can go, right? They can do their peer review, work with Mr. Lincoln's traffic consultant between now and the next meeting to resolve any issues that exist. And perhaps while that's going on and the peer review on the engineering side gets funded, at that point, maybe the conical plans will be updated and they can start to work at the same time. If that takes a little longer, it takes a little longer. But however, whichever one of those gets ahead of the other, at the next meeting, no matter how much distance we put between tonight and the next meeting, those consultant groups can work together to accomplish a lot. So if traffic is done by then maybe we lead off the next meeting with traffic. And we just sort of decide that as we get closer to that date. So whatever date works for the board to have a group together. I know it's summer, I know it's difficult. I don't think is as important to us as getting those groups outside of here, the peer review folks, on those two tracks, working hard together to accomplish a lot between now and then. So, if you said you had a meeting at the end of July, or you said you had a meeting mid-August, I think we'd take either one of them and we'd just try and press to get as much done between now and then.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we have regularly scheduled meetings right now, July 13th, and then our August meeting on the calendar is going to get rescheduled from August 17th to August 24th. It doesn't have to be at a regularly scheduled meeting. We could reschedule it for end of July in theory, beginning of August, but I don't know if that's, too far or too soon to be productive, or if we're better off just shooting for the 24th.
Rick, I would think an August meeting would be great, even if it is later in August, because we can get a lot done between now and then, assuming we can get the peer review consultants engaged. The key is going to be to get their proposals back and then Rick to fund it and then say, okay, go.
Right.
I think, I think that August date, even if it's later in August, that, by the time we come back to the next meeting and that meeting, there'd be a lot accomplished.
Okay. Why don't we shoot for that? I know we've got Woodard and Curran would be our peer review for the engineering. I'm not positive who we would use for the traffic study. And I think Rick had said that we don't necessarily even have the traffic study in hand yet, although he has it.
The traffic study's all done.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it submitted? It's not submitted, you said.
No, I think it is. So it was in the package, I believe.
Oh, I thought you said at the beginning that we didn't that it
Oh,
was.
I'm sorry, that was the civil, the stormwater and everything.
Gotcha, Gotcha, I
think
misunderstood.
it's there.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I will find out tomorrow and let you guys know who we would be using for peer review on the traffic study, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, before we do anything else, is there anything you want to add, ask, advise?
No, thanks for asking, Mr. Chairman, Michael. I don't think so. I think, what you've talked about here tonight makes a lot of sense, keeps things moving. And we make a lot of progress between now and then. And you mentioned holding off on sort of board comments and public comments. There are a lot of moving parts here. And until we get that feedback, it's probably not right to have those conversations. So I think the schedule you've talked about makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. And for everybody else who is attending the hearing as an interested party in this, rest assured you will be heard. You will have an opportunity to provide comments, ask questions. But as I said at the outset, I think it's probably more productive both from interested parties and board members to wait until we get a little bit more information and have the town peer review consultants provide their report to us so that we have a better understanding of what questions we should be asking and for additional information. So, but don't worry about it. We will make sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard. In light of that, if no one else has anything else they want to add, either from the board or the applicant, I guess I would suggest that we make a motion to continue the hearing until August 24th at 6:30. Suzanne, I don't think we have anything on that evening.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anybody on the board that's sitting on this hearing that knows they have a conflict on the 24th? I think everybody had responded that they were available, so.
I'd make such a motion, continue to August 24th.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Merlin to continue the hearing till August 24th at 6:30, seconded by.
I'll second it.
By Mr. Curran. All those in favor, John,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes,
and I will vote to continue as well. So thank you, Mr. Lincoln, for the information, and Attorney Marioni. We will be in touch on getting the proposals to you on the peer review and look forward to seeing you guys again at the end of August.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spillane, board members and council.
Great. All right, moving along. This just takes me a couple of minutes to get this going. Moving on to continued public hearing, special permit number 21-7. Applicant is seeking zoning relief from the minimum continuous lot requirement to construct a single-family home on property located at 153 Chestnut Street. I don't think there are any additional comments, Tim. But if you want to double check on that, and assuming there are not, I will bring in the applicant's attorney and then promptly recuse myself from the hearing.
I don't see anything new, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I am not sure from the minutes if the public hearing notice was read. Perhaps Attorney Chikanowski knows. I don't believe it was read at the last meeting.
You don't think it was read at the last meeting?
No. the public
Okay.
hearing.
Then what, just to be safe, why don't you read or reread the public hearing notice?
Sure.
We'll go from there.
Thank you.
All right. The Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to be held remotely on the petition special permit Brown Billion Realty LLC for property located at 153 Chestnut Street, Easton, Mass. Assessors map 6R Lot 30A for a special permit pursuant to Eastern Code Book, Chapter 235 zoning, Section 235-20. Applicant seeks permission to allow the development of residential structures on property located in a residential zoning district on which commercial structures and uses are presently located. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. I'll reread the comments. DPW was not applicable. Their comment was, please be advised that Chestnut Street is under a roadway moratorium until 2022. Please contact them with any questions. Affordable Housing, Historic Commission, Police Department, all replied not applicable. Fire Department said complete. Comments provided in an attached memo, which I'll read now. The Easton Fire Department has reviewed the information provided for the special permit request and the following comments regarding the proposal. Further site review, including fire department access, will be required. This will include, but not limited to, road widths, apparatus turnaround, hydrant and water supply, potential for residential sprinklers, construction plans for each proposed home, discussion about addressing, street numbers, new street names, question mark. It is also requested that an in-person meeting be arranged to discuss the plans in depth with the fire department to ensure that all parties align prior to the special permits issuance. That's all they had to say. And finally, the planning board stated to not recommend. Their comment was on May 24th, the planning and zoning board discussed a special permit. The members were concerned with the configuration of the concept plan of the subdivision and voted unanimously not to recommend the application. And I think that's it.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned at the last hearing, I have a conflict on this application, so I am going to recuse myself. So the members on this hearing are will be John Curran, Tim McCall, Ed Watson, Jeremy Kay, and Steve Merlin. The uniqueness of this Zoom format, though, I believe, is that since I initiated the meeting, I am the only one who has the ability to add and subtract attendees. So I'll be shutting off my mic and my video, but I have to stay logged on to allow for any members of the public that want to speak. So I will hear you, but I will not be participating. So otherwise, good evening, Attorney Chekanowski. Good to see you. And the floor is yours.
Question, Mike, before you disappear.
Yes, sir.
If you're not there, who's on the board is in control of the meeting and the flow?
I guess with Tim being the secretary, I guess he should be. I don't know.
Okay, I would agree. I just want it
Yeah.
designated so
Yeah.
we all know.
Tim, you can take charge of the meeting and like I said, there is an attendee that has a hand raised. So when the time is appropriate, I'll admit him or her, and you can go from there.
All right, well, I guess we'll start with the attorney for the applicant, Mr. Chekanowski, please.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Craig Chekanowski. I'm an attorney from Foxborough, and I'm pleased to be in front of you this evening. You've had a busy agenda with what looks to be an interesting and fine project before you, so I'll try not to take up too much of your time. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Brown Balone Realty LLC and the property at 153 Chestnut Street. I'm sure you're familiar with the property. The property presently houses a tennis club and has housed the tennis club since 1965. The property is located in a residential zoning district. However, this board, your predecessors, have since 1965 granted the tennis club various special permits. I believe a total of 6 since that time, that have allowed for the tennis club to be located in a residential zone, have allowed for the size of the club to increase. At one point, the board approved a clubhouse with locker rooms that the structure was never built, and as well as allowing a steel structure to replace a dome over certain of the tennis courts. But the property remains in a residential zone, and the applicant, the owner of the property, who's also the operator of the tennis club, would like to best utilize the acreage that is not being used by the tennis club. And so what he has proposed is a subdivision that would effectively create 5 lots, 4 of which would be residential. And what that means with respect to the zoning board is that the prior special permits, which have allowed the tennis club use, the commercial use on the entire site, we would need an amendment to allow the commercial use on a smaller site. And so in talking with the planning department of the town, we decided that it would be best if we came before you folks first, before we go to the planning board or the conservation commission. And Mr. Secretary, you read a number of comments that had to do with configuration of lots and roadways and things that are more appropriate when we get in front of the planning board. We do recognize we need subdivision approval. We do recognize that we need conservation approval. All of that will be sought. But we felt it best to come before you, since you have been the board that has allowed this use to be on the property, and to seek an amendment effectively of the special permit that would be enable us to have the tennis facility on a site that's smaller than it is today, and then would allow the applicant to proceed with planning board and conservation for subdivision approval. I would expect, if the board is willing to entertain that amendment, that you would want it conditioned upon the applicant coming back to you once planning board approval and conservation approval has been obtained, if it's obtained, of the subdivision. And during that process is when all of the street layouts and things like that would be addressed. And then we'd come back to you one final time when we know exactly what the lot that the tennis club is to remain on will look like. We've submitted to the board a couple of renderings of concept plans. That's all they are. They are concept plans at this point. We know that this board doesn't have the ability to give any of the approvals associated with the subdivision process. We know we have to go to planning board. And so that's all we're here seeking tonight. I don't know if our project engineer, Scott Farley, is on the call or not. Maybe someone can check to see if he is, and if Scott's got anything else to add. As I said, he's the project engineer and can talk a little bit more in detail. But again, that's basically what we're here for tonight, to seek your approval to modify the special permits that have been previously granted to the property owner to allow the tennis facility to be located on a smaller lot than the special permit presently allows. One final thing to add, Mr. Secretary, is that as part of this project, there is no proposal to increase the size of the club, to add new structures, to add new features. Everything that is on there today is all that will be there once this process is completed. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board members or anybody else may have.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna hand this off to Mr. Merlin.
Oh, great, thanks. So Craig, let me ask you a legal question, I guess. 2 parts, they're related. So is the smaller lot considered a substantial change which causes a loss of the original special permits because of the non-conforming use, if you understand what I'm asking? And the second part is, were the original special permits granted only because of the lot size at that time, if you know?
The original special, I think I can answer your second question, Mr. Merlin, easier. The property was added to after the 1965 initial special permit. So the area that was originally allowed to be used for the commercial venture was then increased later, and I forget which actual special permit it was, but it was increased later in time to what's now the entire acreage. And I'm not sure I fully understood your first question.
Is reducing the lot size of the tennis club a substantial change, which actually causes a loss of the non-conforming use in the neighborhood? Subject to getting a new permit, of course.
Subject to getting a new, would it cause a substantial loss? Well, the
Substantial change. So
substantial
it's, in other words,
change,
you're changing the use. You're not changing the use of the premises, you're changing the size of the lot.
would change,
And as a non-conforming use, when you change a non-conforming use, you usually lose it, subject to getting a new special permit or whatever.
so we're not, obviously not changing the non-conforming use. The use is remaining the same. The impact of that use is going to remain the same. It's just going to be on a smaller lot than is presently allowed. But the area that's being used by the tennis facility today will not change.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Watson,
No questions, Tim.
Mr. Curran,
This is so if this proposal goes forward, I mean, what is the relationship between these residential lots and the tennis clubs? Is it going to be part of some kind of an association? Or are they just going to be separate and independent from the tennis club?
No, our expectation is that the roadway will remain private and therefore they'll all be part of an association. So that they will all have a say in the maintenance and have an obligation to the continued maintenance of the road. So there would have to be a lot owners association that is created.
Thank you. I have nothing else right now.
all right, Mr. K. Hey, you're muted.
Sorry, I don't have anything to ask.
All right, that leaves me. So basically what you're asking the board to do is to give you an amendment on an existing permit. And then from this point forward, you're going to go and get the permitting through the other boards and with, more plans and consult with the other departments in town, basically, correct?
That's exactly right. We will need subdivision approval. We know that we will need to go to conservation. And as I said earlier, if the board is willing to entertain this application, we would expect that if the approval be conditioned upon us returning to you once and if we obtain subdivision approval, so that you'll have a final look at exactly what the lots will look like.
Okay.
Tim, excuse me, this is Suzanne.
Go
Mike
ahead.
Lane said when you take questions from the public, he will admit Steve Farrier.
All right, hold on.
Unless you can do that.
I don't think I have any control. I think Mr. Spillane still has
Scott-
the
Scott
master key,
Farrier.
but
So why don't you, if you say you're admitting one of the people, I think Mike can hear and can, there he,
okay,
Scott
All right.
Farrier has been admitted.
sure. All right, any comments from the public? Mr. Farrier, please proceed.
Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering. As the attorney said, I'm the engineer on the job, but he
Okay.
explained everything perfectly. I have nothing to add at all, Mr. Secretary.
Okay. Do we have anyone from the public? I don't know if I don't see anybody. Suzanne, do you see anybody on there? Or?
Mike says no one else.
Okay.
He can,
So what would you like us to do? You want us to, anybody else have any comments before we decide?
If to move to close the meeting, if that's the appropriate motion, I would make it.
Okay, I would move that we close the meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Curran. And then
Roll call.
any other discussion?
did Steve make the motion or Tim?
I made the motion, Mr. Curran seconded.
Okay,
All right.
Okay.
Any discussion from anyone? We'll start with Mr. Watson,
No,
Mr. Curran,
No,
Mr. Merlin.
And what are we voting on? Are we voting to close the meeting or are we voting whether there's more discussion?
I guess we're voting to close a meeting. Sorry.
Okay, I think we better do that again.
No, you're
There's a
right. Sorry.
misunderstanding.
Motion to close a meeting has been made. Mr. Watson,
yes,
Merlin,
Yes,
Mr. Curran,
yes,
Mr. K,
Yes,
and myself, yes, meeting has been closed. Do we have any discussion on, or does anyone like to make a motion on this closing the hearing? I mean,
need a motion.
regarding
on-
the permit.
on-
Yeah,
On approval or non-approval.
Correct.
well, are you moving to approve or are you moving?
I'm not moving anything. I think Tim accidentally said in the motion to close the meeting again.
Yes, I did. Any discussion on this? I mean, it seems like they're still gonna have to come back regardless, so I don't personally have a issue with this. I don't know procedurally about the law, but it seems okay. Does anybody have an objection or any concerns? Mr. Watson,
not right now.
Mr. Merlin,
Not right now either, because they're gonna have to go to the planning board, conservation, and whoever else the town thinks necessary. But I thought the planning board had the subdivision control. It doesn't come back to us. Am I right or wrong on that?
I think you're right on that.
So in other words, we vote, we're out of the picture. It's up to the planning board and conservation, I think.
Okay, is that something you feel comfortable with?
All we're doing is giving them the opportunity to pitch their case to the other boards, and the planning board's already said no to the original plan, but so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Mr. Curran,
No, I agree with the comments made by Mr. Merlin. I mean, there's more to be done here, and I think that the applicant's going to have to go to those other boards to get the necessary approval. And we're just the first step in that process. So I don't have an issue with giving them the opportunity to go to those boards to get what the approval that they need.
agree. Mr. K,
I don't have anything to add.
okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the application, subject to the conditions that we've already discussed, which is that the applicant has to go to the planning board, the conservation commission. I believe that there's also some meetings that were requested by the fire department. And also subject to their returning to this board if necessary, following the presentations to those other boards. That's kind of a long-winded motion, forgive me, but that's what I'm thinking.
All right. Anyone like to second?
Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
Who
Seconded
seconded?
by Mr. K, I believe.
Okay.
And we'll go with the roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Watson,
Aye,
Mr. Merlin,
Yes,
Mr. Curran,
Yes,
and Mr. K.
Yes,
And I will vote yes as well. Okay, so that matter is finished. I'll
Thank you.
pass it off to Mr. Spillane.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
All right, have a good one.
All right, I'm back. Good job,
All
guys.
right. A little rusty
Trying
there.
to throw you in the
but
fire
that's
there,
all right.
Tim.
I think
That's
we
all right.
missed,
It's a little rusty.
I think we missed you, Mike.
What's
That
that?
was a,
I think we missed you.
Nah, you guys did fine. So, so let's see, anything, the only other things we've got are, review of the, now refresh me if I'm wrong, Suzanne, we do, board reorganization or organization at the next meeting, right?
Oh, we did it.
Huh?
I thought we did it, but I'll check.
No, we did not, so.
Okay, so next meeting.
I
Yeah,
think
Were
we
there
have
any
to do it
other
at the next meeting,
applicants?
because I'm pretty sure Ed and I both have to get sworn in before that meeting, so
Okay,
You-
sounds good. I'll
You
put it
were
on.
already appointed? In other
I
words?
was approved for my reapplication. I just haven't been
Okay.
sworn in, so
Okay, next
Okay.
agenda, July.
I'm officially out as of tomorrow until I get sworn in, so.
Okay,
I've already been sworn in.
good.
Oh, good for you, Ed.
Okay,
Try
try it July
No,
20th.
I will get that done next week, and then, our next hearing is, July 13th, am I correct?
20th, I believe.
20th, okay, I misstated before, so. All right, let's,
20th.
I will not be here on July 20th, unfortunately.
okay,
Okay,
okay. We have 2 applications right now, correct, Suzanne?
correct.
Should be short, quick ones, so, not a problem. We should have enough, and I would imagine even if we only have 4, we'll be fine, as long as the applicants want to move forward. Does somebody want to make a motion on approving the meeting minutes, which I don't have in front of me, so I forget what the date was, but from our May meeting?
June 8th.
Motion to
Oh,
approve
right,
the
earlier this
meeting
month,
minutes of June 8th.
that's right. What's that?
No, motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 8th.
Okay, motion made by Mr. McCall, seconded by
Second,
Mr. Merlin. All those in favor will do roll call. John,
Yes.
Steve,
yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
and I'll vote to approve as well. Anything else, Suzanne, before we adjourn?
No.
Okay, good.
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Mr. Merlin, seconded by
Seconded.
Fine.
everyone. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll give Ed credit on that, Suzanne, if you want to,
Yes,
need that for the meeting minutes.
yes.
Ed said aye. Steve?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I vote to adjourn as well. 6-0.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
You as well. Enjoy the
Same
next
here.
month. Enjoy the nice warm weather we're having, and have a great 4th weekend, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
You
And
as
they
well.
went
All right, enjoy.
All
See
right,
you,
thank you,
gentlemen.
guys.
See you,
Take it
gentlemen.
easy. Good night, Suzanne.
Good night.